The night was unusually quiet in Maple Ridge Estates. The kind of quiet that makes every sound echo a little louder than it should. I had just parked my brand new black Jeep Wrangler in my driveway, a reward to myself after years of grinding through the police ranks. The headlights dimmed, and I leaned back, letting out a long breath. Tomorrow was my first official day as the new police chief, a title I had fought hard for. But that peaceful moment didn't last long. At exactly 11:46 p.m., tires screeched somewhere down the cul-de-sac. I frowned. Nobody respectable drove like that at this hour. Then came the blinding sweep of floodlights. A white SUV rolled up. Sirens almost, but not quite correct. Too distorted, too cheap. 3 men jumped out wearing dark uniforms with shiny police patches that didn't look real even from 30 feet away. Their badges hung crooked. Their belts were missing half the standard equipment. Not a single body cam in sight. Fake. Instantly obvious. One of them slapped a flashlight against his palm. "Whose Jeep is this?" He barked loudly, as if trying too hard to sound authoritative. I didn't move yet. I just watched. Another guy stepped forward, pulling out a metal clipboard. "This vehicle is in violation of HOA regulations. We've been instructed to impound it immediately." I almost laughed. Impound? At midnight? From a driveway? Real cops don't work for homeowners associations. The eldest-looking one walked right up to the Jeep and tapped the hood aggressively. "This modification is illegal. Needs to be removed or the vehicle will be seized." Illegal? It was a factory model. These guys didn't even know what they were looking at. My neighbor, Mrs. Decker, peeked out from behind her curtains. A dog barked down the street. The men grew more obnoxious, yanking at my Jeep door handles, shining lights inside, inspecting things that didn't need inspecting. That was enough. I finally stepped out onto my porch, calm and controlled. "Evening," I said. The 3 men froze. Their flashlights turned toward me. "This your vehicle?" the leader asked. "It is," I replied. "You violated HOA Code 17B, he said confidently, as if reciting a script. "We're towing it." I folded my arms. "Before you do that," I said slowly, "I need to see your department ID, badge number, and authorization for this stop." They exchanged glances. One of them swallowed hard. "We don't need to show you anything," the leader snapped. "HOA hired us. That's enough." I took one deliberate step forward. "Not quite," I said. "Because starting tomorrow morning, I'm officially the police chief of Ridge County." Their faces drained of color. "And you 3, I added, "aren't cops." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. The fake officers froze like statues, their cheap badges glinting under the porch light. For a moment, none of them spoke. The leader, a tall, wiry man with a patchy beard, shifted uncomfortably. He clearly hadn't expected resistance, let alone a homeowner announcing he was the new police chief. I kept my voice steady. "Let me repeat myself. Identification. Now." The second guy, shorter and stockier, muttered, "We don't have that." "Of course you don't," I said. "Because you're not real law enforcement. So let's talk about what you were doing here." The leader tried to recover his confidence. "The HOA contracted us to enforce vehicle standards. Your Jeep violates multiple rules." I stepped closer, enough for them to see I wasn't intimidated. "You're trespassing on private property. You're impersonating officers. And you're trying to damage my vehicle." Behind them, their cheap SUV idled with a magnetic light bar slapped on top. My real police-trained eyes caught everything. The mismatched boots, the lack of proper radios, the absence of duty belts, the way their uniforms were off-the-rack tactical gear from an online store. Then I noticed something else, a clipboard full of papers with HOA letterheads. I snatched the top sheet before the leader could react. HOA Incident Order #44A. Neutralize the vehicle immediately. Neutralize? They weren't here to tow it. They were here to damage it. The stocky guy lunged forward. "Hey, you can't." I raised one hand sharply. "Move another inch, and you'll regret it." He froze. My tone left no room for argument. Mrs. Decker had stepped out now, arms crossed, robe fluttering in the breeze. I knew the HOA was up to something. I told everyone, "They're getting worse." The leader exhaled shakily. "Look, we were just following instructions. The HOA president said this Jeep was breaking the neighborhood's aesthetics. He wants it gone." "Aesthetics?" I repeated. "It's a standard Jeep, not a monster truck." "That's not my problem," he muttered. "It's about to become one," I said. Because what you did tonight, it's a felony. The men exchanged panicked looks. The youngest one whispered, "Man, we should just go." The leader snapped, "No." HOA said. I cut him off. HOA doesn't outrank the law. And if they hired you to impersonate police, then they're going down with you. All three paled. Then, as if realizing their plan had completely unraveled, the leader blurted, "You can't prove anything." "Oh, I can," I said, lifting my phone. "Ring camera, porch camera, and the department already knows I'm moving into this district." I pointed at their SUV. "Step away, all of you." The fake cops backed down, visibly shaken. But the real storm was still coming. The three impostors hesitated on the driveway, their bravado completely shattered. I could see the panic in their eyes. The kind only comes when someone realizes the game is over. The leader, trying one last bluff, spat out, "Listen, we can explain to the HOA." I shook my head. "No, you explain to the police, not me. You're done here." The stocky one started pacing, muttering under his breath, "We can't go to jail. We can't." "Then start cooperating," I said, stepping closer. "Or the local news gets the story. Your HOA's little scheme just became public." The realization hit them. They were cornered, and their fake credentials weren't worth the paper they were printed on. I pulled my phone out and started recording. "Everything you've done tonight, documented. Every word, every move. You're under investigation for impersonating law enforcement, trespassing, and attempted vehicle damage. And yes, the HOA will face serious charges for hiring you." The leader swallowed hard. We were told it was just a simple warning. Nothing serious." I raised an eyebrow. "Simple warning at midnight with flashlights and fake badges? Yeah, sure. That's called intimidation, not a warning. And guess what? Intimidation of a police chief isn't exactly a great career move for any of you." Their SUV door creaked as they nervously opened it, glancing at each other. It was clear they were debating escape, but I had already called the station. Backup was on the way. Then, Mrs. Decker piped up from her porch. "Chief, do you want me to show them the cameras? They've been taping everything from my balcony." I nodded, and she motioned to the recording on her tablet. The men's faces drained further. Their professional act was unraveling on two fronts. I sighed and leaned on my Jeep, keeping a casual tone. "You know, there's an old rule in policing. Don't make your enemy desperate. You made yourselves desperate. That's on you." The leader stammered, "We didn't know. It was the HOA." I smiled coldly. "Exactly. And the HOA will be next. But first, you three, you're going to answer some questions at the station. And don't think your excuses will save you." The shortest one bolted for the SUV, fumbling with the keys. I stepped forward. "Stop. Now." He froze, realizing the futility. Finally, they climbed back into the vehicle slowly, hands shaking, and the SUV rolled a few feet backward. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching them retreat into the shadows. Even as they disappeared, I knew this wasn't over. The HOA wouldn't give up so easily. They were bold enough to try something like this in the first place. But they had underestimated one thing. A police chief doesn't just enforce the law. He is the law. The night air finally felt calm again. My Jeep sat in the driveway, untouched, gleaming under the streetlights. But somewhere in the distance, I could feel the storm brewing. This fight with the HOA was only beginning. The next morning, the quiet suburban streets of Maple Ridge. Estates were buzzing, but not with normal activity. Word of last night's events had already spread like wildfire. Residents whispered behind hedges, some peeking out of windows, others filming the scene with their phones. The HOA had underestimated what happens when you push someone too far, especially when that someone is the new police chief. I arrived at the HOA office promptly at 9 a.m. Jeep parked conspicuously in front, gleaming like a trophy. The receptionist froze as she saw me walk in. "Chief, I didn't give her a chance to finish. I went straight to the conference room where the HOA board was gathered. Papers and coffee cups scattered across the table. They were pale, stiff, and clearly regretting last night's decisions. "Good morning," I said, my tone casual but cold. "I understand you sent some representatives to handle my Jeep last night." The HOA president, a portly man with a fake tan and sweating profusely, tried to speak. "Chief, we were just following protocol." "Protocol?" I interrupted. "Hiring imposters to intimidate a police officer? That's not protocol. That's illegal. Felony level illegal." Gasps filled the room. One board member reached for her phone, clearly ready to call for help, but I was faster. Put it down. Everything you're saying right now is being documented. And trust me, we're going to need a record. I pulled out my tablet, playing the footage from last night. The 3 fake officers messing with my Jeep, stumbling over each other, panicked faces, clearly breaking the law. The president stammered. We didn't know. You didn't know what? I asked sharply. That impersonating officers is a crime? That trespassing isn't a suggestion? That intimidating a police chief could end your HOA careers and possibly land you in jail? Silence. They had no words. I leaned over the table, my voice dropping to a lethal calm. Here's how this is going to work. First, your HOA board will issue a formal apology to me and the neighborhood. Second, you will terminate any contracts with companies attempting illegal enforcement. Third, I will personally oversee compliance inspections moving forward. And finally, the 3 men you hired will be charged with impersonation, trespassing, and attempted property damage. The room looked like it had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Papers shuffled nervously. One board member whispered, We can't believe this. I straightened, smiling faintly. Believe it, because this is what happens when you underestimate the law or the lawman. By the time I left, the streets were quiet again. My Jeep, untouched and shining in the morning sun, was more than just a vehicle now. It was a symbol that Maple Ridge Estates had a new sheriff in town, and anyone trying to pull illegal stunts would pay the price. And as for the HOA, they learned the hard way. Never send fake cops to mess with a real one.